So I made my first Daemon video over 2 years ago. It'll be 3 years this summer. And it was because I was at a place where I genuinely felt lost in my life as far as my purpose, as far as kind of the direction my life was supposed to take and how I was supposed to navigate it. And I was at a really low point. And it was at that point I had heard Plato's myth of Ur. And it's this story that Plato told about how each one of us comes to this earth with a daemon, like an invisible, unconscious, guiding spirit that kind of represents this teleological blueprint for our life. And it's invisible to us. We don't remember having it assigned to us, but hopefully its exertion and its influence in our life keeps us on the path we're meant to be on. And I loved that idea. And I thought, that's what I need right now. I was feeling so lost and so confused about who I was that I wanted to be able to notice the influence of this invisible force. And it's not to say that I necessarily believed Plato was telling a true story about the way the world works and about metaphysics, because I don't think I did believe it even then. I was hopeful. I wished it existed, because that would have made things a lot simpler. But even though Plato might have meant it as something he really believed, I thought it had some real power as a myth. And what I mean by power as a myth, it had power to exert pedagogical influence in my life. It had the power to kind of represent a bigger truth that's hard to put into words. So it has to be put into kind of a mythology. And I started kind of pursuing the Daemon with that in mind, and that kind of trying to find direction in my life in the form of, like, what is there a blueprint inside of me? And as I studied and tried to kind of dissect this, I found a lot of support for the idea among Jungian thinkers, specifically the Jungian analyst James Hillman. Like, he uses the word daemon to describe this thing we all have inside of us, this blueprint. He talks about it as his acorn theory, that each one of us is an acorn, and inside of us is the potential for this giant oak tree. And he really kind of leans heavily on that terminology. Jung himself talked about the daemon sometimes, but the way I think of the daemon, Jung described as the self. So this internal compass that kind of pushed us towards growth, growing into what we were ultimately meant to be. And even if he didn't call that the daemon, I have decided when I talk about the daemon, I'm talking about the self that Jung talked about. And it's okay for me to have my own terminology around it, and it's okay for me to have my own mythology around it. Joseph Campbell, who wasn't a psychologist, but I think it was pretty clearly a Jungian thinker as far as like who he was influenced by. He talked about how when you follow your bliss, when you do the thing that feels like you're giving your gift, you're doing what you were meant to do, then invisible hands come from the universe to help you and guide you and open doors that wouldn't have opened otherwise. That is as clear a definition of the daemon as I can come up with on my own. And you see these thoughts other places. You see that in Schopenhauer and in Hinduism, where they talk about Dharma. And I know Dharma has a lot of different definitions, but I think there is a definition that applies this way. You see it in Crowley's discussions of true will. And so those are all places that I kind of dipped into as I was studying this concept. But ultimately, at the end of the day, what I feel have come away really sure with over 2 years later is that it is in our unconscious. It's not something that we consciously hear from very often. You can. I have. And I have videos about that, and we can talk about it more in the future. But mostly, the daemon is going to exert its influence unconsciously. And so we hear from our unconscious every day in a lot of different ways, in our reactions to things. Sometimes we have unconscious reactions to things, usually emotional reactions. when we interpret events going on around us. A lot of that interpretation stems from our unconscious. But the way that I find the unconscious most regularly and reliably speaks to us is in our dreams. And you might have noticed me starting to talk a lot more about dreams on this channel. And that is on purpose, because I believe if I'm going to come into regular, reliable contact with my daemon, and if other people are going to because I help them to, the best place to turn for that is looking at our dreams. So what I want to start encouraging people to do is really, if you're not paying attention to your dreams, start doing it. If you're not even remembering your dreams, I hear a lot of people when I talk to them about dreams, they'll say, well, I don't dream. Well, if scientists are believed, you probably do if you're a mammal. The only thing is you don't remember it. The part of our mind that dreams is connected to our short-term memory. And so that's why if you don't write down a dream, it's really hard to remember it if you wait very long after you wake up. But also it's not there. And there are theories about why we don't remember them. We can cover that in another video. I don't want to get too far off track. But they're really interesting and I think fun theories. But at any rate, my hope for you, if you're into this Daemon conversation, is that we can turn your dreams into a wellspring of information, communication, and contact with your Daemon. And so the first thing you have to do if we're going to start doing that is start paying attention to your dreams. And so if you're one of those people that says, oh, I don't dream, here's my first piece of advice. Before you go to bed, drink a big bottle of water. And so you drink this big bottle of water, you're going to have to pee a couple of times before you go to sleep. Let's be honest. That's the annoying part. But eventually you're going to fall asleep. And then later in the night, your bladder is going to be like, hey, we got to get rid of some of this water. And so it's going to wake you up with the sensation that you have to pee. And because it's going to wake you up at the easiest place to wake you up, it's likely going to happen when you're in the REM phase of sleep. And dreaming happens throughout the night. You dream no matter what phase of sleep you're in, but you dream a lot in the REM phase. And so if you wake up to pee and you're in this REM phase, hopefully you wake up when you were having a dream, you become conscious while you were dreaming. And that's how we remember dreams. We become conscious in the middle of them. And so if that happens to you, you wake up to pee and you're like, oh, I was dreaming. Write it down. Write down as many things as you can remember. And some people are like, yeah, but if I write it down, it's going to wake me up. I'm not going to get back to sleep. Do whatever you have to do. If you want to keep your phone by your bed and just make a voice memo, do that. And that's always kind of fun and interesting, because if you make a voice memo when you're half asleep, the next morning you're like, what the hell was going on? What is it? What am I talking about? And so you kind of get a little glimpse of a voice from the other side being the sleepy you. But, write it down, record it, do whatever you can to get that detail someplace where your long-term memory has access to it, because otherwise it's going to just kind of bop around in your short-term memory and you'll forget it by the time you wake up in the morning. So write down any dreams you remember. It doesn't even have to be details. It can be just emotional content. I woke up feeling happy. I woke up feeling scared. I woke up feeling horny. Whatever you wake up feeling, write it down and date it so that you know here's when it happened. And if you want to, you can write little details of what happened that day, what emotional state you were in when you went to bed, because maybe you'll find that helpful later. Not necessary, but that's something you can do that some people find helpful. So after you get those written down and just do this in a plain old notebook. It can, or, if you want to do a leather bound, whatever, you can, but it doesn't have to be that. You need to do the thing that's going to make you most likely to get started. So if it's just a composition notebook that you have laying around the house, use that. But so write down what the dream content was. And then now after you have a notebook full of dream content, you're going to realize, well, these are just a bunch of like weird things that I was dreaming about. What's the point of this? Well, the point is your unconscious, your Daemon, speaks a different language than you do. It speaks the language of metaphor and symbols. And so it's not that it's not saying anything meaningful, it's just saying it in a way you don't understand. So you have to learn to decipher the metaphors and the symbols produced by your daemon. And that's a big part of what some of the future videos here are going to focus on. I already have one video where I analyze some dreams that I've gotten from different platforms, and teaching people how to understand the symbol set that their unconscious prefers, I think, is one of the most important things we can do to put us in contact regularly with the daemon. And so start writing that stuff down. Start returning to this channel. If you don't already, you should be. Why aren't you? And learn how to figure out the symbol set that your unconscious is using. I think that is the number one most significant thing you can do to hear from and communicate and understand your daemon. And from there, there's other steps we can partake in. Like, I think your daemon has a very specific interest. It's not interested in you having a Maserati or having a hot girlfriend or being super rich. Like, you can make the argument, maybe for some people, the daemon sees those things as part and parcel to giving their gift. I don't know. It's your daemon. But in general, it's interested in you optimizing who you are. And so if you have concerns and questions along those lines about how to do that best, then you can ask for dreams around that topic. I have done this regularly. I can ask my daemon for a dream regarding a specific topic, and there are ways to ask, I think, that are more effective than others, and we can get into that in the future. But you can ask for a dream around a specific topic as it relates to you optimizing yourself and becoming who you're meant to be, and I believe the daemon will answer that question, or at least that's how it's worked for me. And it's going to answer it not like if you say, hey, should I go to France? It's not going to give you the dream of you going to France necessarily. It's going to give you a metaphor, a symbolic answer that you then have to interpret. But once you figure out how to do that, you'll start seeing, holy crap, this thing is answering my questions left and right. So we'll get into the process is called dream incubation. We'll get into that. But first, I just want everybody to get comfortable just paying attention to the dreams that are coming to them. And then the next step will be interpretation. And then after that, then we can get to incubation. And my dream is that in a couple of years, like, we have a really strong, robust community of people who are in reliable, regular contact with their daemon, with their Jungian self, with the teleological blueprint of the life they're supposed to live. So that's the dream. I don't know what your dream is. That's funny. I don't know what your dream is in a video who were talking about dreams. Sorry, got distracted by my own words. But if you're at all in the place where I was at 2 years ago, and you need this, then here it is. Let's start working on it together. Okay, guys, thanks.